Hi there. For those of you who are watching live, I'll wish you Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me here on Fulfilling Career Happy Life. I'm excited today to talk about the topic of identifying who's the leader you want to be and how you can put it into action and move that much closer to it. You can think about it almost as your North Star, your vision that you're moving towards on your leadership journey. I'm Randy Roberts. I'm an executive and career life coach. And those of you who have joined me before know that I absolutely love helping you love your work while you're achieving your goals. And I'm excited about talking about leadership and your leadership vision aligned with that. So thanks for being here. It's interesting because we are at the start of the year. And, there's nothing magic about the turn of the calendar page, but it feels different. And at the end of the year, you naturally, I think the things slow down a little bit. People take the foot off the gas, they get, distracted or engaged with holidays and families and all those wonderful things. So it's easy to slow down a little bit. And when we come back at the beginning of the year, you might feel like you got shot out of a cannon in terms of the need to start getting things done and really make traction and move things forward for the year. And that's all good, not taking away from that at all. My point is, you have to be a little bit more purposeful if you need to slow down for a minute at the beginning of the year. And I think it's really worth doing to take some time and reflect on your own leadership and who you want to be as a leader so that you can put a plan in place to start moving it forward, putting that plan into action for the year in a way that works for you, in a way that becomes a practice, without just going through in your default mode, which has worked for you, but may not be exactly what you want to be doing. So it's just something to be aware of. Give yourself permission to take a pause. And, thinking about that question of who do you want to be as a leader now? That's really at the heart of what our discussion is today. And, when you're at the VP level or the C-suite level, leadership isn't really defined as much about what you can do, but more about how you think, how you decide, and how you show up when things matter the most. And that may sound funny, but truthfully, if you're at that level, you are accomplishing work through others. So it's really more about your leadership presence and your leadership influence. And if you aspire to that level, this applies to you too, because the sooner you can sort of put on that mindset and enable that thinking, embody that thinking, the sooner others, decision makers about your future will see you in that way and recognize that, yeah, this might be a stretch opportunity for you, but you can do it, and here's why. So it applies to you no matter which situation that you're in. Think about it as becoming the leader that you want to be is an intentional act. It really requires clarity. It requires some courage and a willingness to lead yourself as much as you're leading others. So what we want to think about is identifying your ideal leadership persona. And by that, this is work I do with clients all the time. By ideal leadership persona, what I mean is your leadership positioning. Now, when I go back to my marketing days, and a lot of you have marketing backgrounds, or you may be in that world now, positioning really is the real estate that your product takes up in the mind of your customer. What do they think about it? How does it make them feel? So think of yourself as the product. What's your ideal leadership positioning? What's your persona? What is your positioning as a leader? So that's where we're going to go right now, because by getting clear on what that vision is for yourself, you can move in a very inspired way towards something, which is really, really different than, oh, be careful, don't do that. Moving away from something is much less inspired than having that vision and moving towards it. So that's what we want to set up here. So, where does it start in terms of identifying your ideal leadership persona? Start by taking a really clear eyed view about the leader that you are today. Really start by taking a clear eyed view of the leader that you are today. Look really honestly at how you currently lead. What are your default behaviors? Because those are the ones that really show up under stress. What are your decision patterns? What's the impact that you have on an enterprise level, especially when you're under pressure? So think about that really clearly and think about, I said clear eyed assessment of it. Some good prompting questions to ask yourself about this are, what are the things that you're most proud of? What are the actions that you do? What is the impact that you make that really has the biggest impact and the thing that makes you feel proud? On the other hand, also think about, what are the things that sort of make your inner talk track, your inner critic voice activate? And that might look like, "Ooh, what I should have done was this," or it could even be freezing in the moment and a real lack of clarity about what you should do. We all have those moments. So that's a great way to start thinking about who are you as a leader today. And break it down as objectively as you can. Try not to judge it. Just take a look at where are you making an impact and what are the adjustments you think you would make if you were doing it today. And once you've done that, it's good to think about shifting from doing leadership to being a leader. And really, what this gets to is your mindset. You want to really embrace the influence you have, the judgment that you use, and the presence that you portray, because those things outweigh your own execution. You're accomplishing through others. So what's the presence that you're giving off into the world? What's the impact? What's the impression that you're making in the world? Who are you even in times of ambiguity? And this goes very much to your mindset. Really building the habits that can become your new default. I mentioned that under stress, we kind of go to our default mode. And by building new habits, you can be moving into a different place. A great way to think about this is to envision the leaders that you admire and purposefully learn from them. So, right now, think about a leader that comes to mind. Who is that person that really inspired you, either now or at an earlier point in your career? Someone that you wanted to emulate, that you really felt the impact that they made, and they built followership because others saw that too. Do you have somebody in mind? So think about what are the things that they did? What is the impact that they made? How did they make you feel? Because that can really help you to break down and identify what are those qualities that you really respect. Um, how did they think? How did they make trade-offs? How did they explain their approach to things when times were tough? How did they create followership? So it's the outcomes they achieve, but it's more than that too. You know, who are they? And then what you can do is you can break it down and model the aspects of their behavior that feel authentic to you. You don't necessarily just want to become this other person. That's them. That's their secret sauce. What you want to do is break it down and take on those attributes that feel authentic to you, that feel like you can own them and they can become habits for you. That is really, really important because you can't be fake about this. Developing this kind of leadership really has to be authentic, really has to be true to who you are. One of the next steps in really identifying that ideal leadership persona or leadership positioning is to get really clear on your future leadership vision. So pick a point in time. It might be 5 years, it might be 1 year. You get to pick it. Think about who you want to be as a leader at that point in time. How do you want to lead other leaders? How do you want to feel as a leader? How do you want to make tough calls? How are you going to balance results with humanity? Sometimes they feel at odds. And what do you want your reputation to be? So you're getting really clear on what that vision is. You who are you as a leader? Because then what you can do is you can use that to move towards, and you can think about how you bring that into action today. So that one's really worth thinking about a little bit and letting it be present for you. So give it some thoughts. If it works for you to journal, to, take audio notes in your phone, whatever it is for you, let it be present for yourself a little bit so that you can get really clear on what that leadership vision is for yourself. Sometimes the things that come off the top of your head are really, really valuable, but sitting with it for a little while will help bring something more out of it. So, anyway, really worth uh, getting clear on what is your leadership vision. Now, this next step can take some getting uncomfortable. You guys have heard me before say, embrace the discomfort because that's where the growth is. That might need to happen at this next step, which is really naming the gaps. So taking a look at what you've looked at who who are you today as a leader? You're looking at what's the vision, getting really clear on what you're moving towards. So it's important to identify the gaps, but you want to do that with curiosity and grace, not judgment. This exercise won't necessarily be helpful for you if you're thinking about it like, oh, I'm doing that and it's terrible. I can't believe I do this thing. Whatever that is, give yourself a lot of kindness in this exercise. But it's important to identify those gaps because that's the only way you can work on them, right? It might be a mindset gap. It might be some behavior or skills. It might just be information that you need to learn, but really embrace them as signals for growth, opportunities for growth, not shortcomings. They're what is today. Remember, you're moving towards something different in the future. And that's the way that you do that, is to fill those gaps. So give yourself lots of kindness in that process and really do approach it with curiosity. The more you can get clear on what the impact or the outcome is, what you want to make happen, what's possible, the more clear these gaps will become, and then you can work to filling them. Then, once you've done that, once you've identified what the gaps may be, you want to prioritize the shifts that will matter the most. You want to focus on a few things so that it's not overwhelming. It's something that's manageable. It's something that's actionable. It's something you can even measure so that you can track your progress. If you try and take on the world, it's very easy to get stuck and make no progress. So prioritize those shifts that are going to matter the most. Focus on maybe 1 to 3. Whatever is meaningful for you, whatever you think would really elevate your leadership impact and your readiness for the next level. If you are one of these folks that's aspiring to that, that's something to keep in mind too. So you really want to be careful not to overwhelm yourself because that can lead to actual inaction. A way to put this into practice is once you start to work on these things, if you will, you can use your future self, that vision of who you are as a leader at that future point in time, almost as a strategic filter for making decisions. So you can regularly ask yourself, okay, what would Randy 5 years from now need me to do today to set up that future? How does this challenge or opportunity that I'm facing, how does my approach to this challenge or opportunity that I'm facing create that future that I envision? And it may seem really big and lofty, but it actually is easier to put into practice than you may think. It's just building that habit. Once you're clear on what the future is, What do you need to be doing today to set that up? And you know what? If you don't get it right, if something gets messed up, and for most of us that will happen, what does future you need to do today to fix it, to learn from it, to make things right? That's okay too. Those are some of the ways that you can really translate the vision that you have for the future into your daily leadership behaviors. Because evolving your leadership happens in everyday moments. It's not just when you're on stage in front of the entire company, or um, presenting to the board, or whatever that, stressful pinnacle moment is for you. It doesn't just happen there. It's really in the everyday moments where people get to know you and get to see you and learn who you are consistently. So that just happens in meetings. That just happens in everyday conversations or providing feedback, and how you respond, in particular when the stakes are high and the stress is hot. That's how people really learn who you are. And it's important to keep these things in mind, again, otherwise you will revert to your default. So you're trying to change what that default is, which requires some true intention as you're working through it, just like any other skill that you're trying to build. And one of the things to keep in mind is you really want to build momentum through everything being aligned, not through intensity. It's really hard to work harder at this and try harder and drive harder to move this faster, if you will, or do it better somehow. What you really need is consistent, aligned actions that will build on themselves over time. You will build trust in yourself to be able to do it. You'll build credibility. People will see that you are consistent in your behavior, which is really what builds confidence in you as a leader. And it will be sustainable, as opposed to something that sort of is a bright flash and then burns out. So becoming the leader that you want to be is not a side project. We started by talking about uh, shooting out of the gate really hot at the beginning of the year and trying to make all the things happen. Trying to make all the things happen. And the risk is that you lose sight of the career development aspects of things that you want. You put that on the back burner. We make ourselves a lower priority. But that's not a side project. That is the work, because you're developing your leadership through everything that you're doing. Your title may change, the markets may change, your business may evolve, but the quality and impact of your leadership will continue to shape the outcomes long after the plan does. It leaves a mark. It has a lasting impact, and it's worth thinking about over the long term. Keep in mind too that the most effective leaders don't wait for permission or for promotion or for the perfect moment to make something happen. They embody the behavior that they're looking for, that they're aspiring to today, and they just practice it and they move forward into who they are becoming as a leader. So as you move into this year, keeping in mind the focus on your own leadership journey, a really great question to keep in mind and keep forefront for yourself is, what does this future version of me need me to do today, and maybe do differently today, to make that happen? It's a great filter question to keep top of mind. Okay, so let me check the different feeds that we're on and see if some questions are coming in. Okay, here's something. How do I balance focusing on my own leadership development with the constant pressure to deliver results? Oh, that's a good question, because that goes back to getting so distracted by the urgent that sometimes we put the important on the back burner. One of the things that I talk to clients about a lot is really building a practice. setting some time, it might be blocking 30 minutes once a week on your calendar, the beginning or the end of the week, whatever works for you. It could be while you're out for a walk, like what's good thinking time for you? And reflect back on what that leadership vision is and what are the decisions you want to be making today to get yourself closer towards that. So it's a practice like anything else when you're building a new skill. It's really up to you to prioritize it. But one thing that can really help is building in some kind of accountability, which might be an accountability partner. If you have a colleague or some, trusted person in your life that's doing similar kinds of things, you could just meet regularly and talk about it and help hold each other accountable in the right ways to moving forward. It could be a coach, it could be journaling, whatever works for you. But a lot of times what we need to do is get out of our own heads, do it regularly, and help, hold ourselves accountable and measure it. All right, another question. Oh, this is interesting. What if my future leadership vision conflicts with the culture or expectations of my current organization? Yeah, that's a big one. And my instinctive answer to that is if that happens, if your future leadership vision really conflicts with the world that you're in, something has to change. Now, the problem is if the culture doesn't change, you just may not feel like your authentic self here. It may not be aligned to your values, and it may not be a place that is right for you to be long term. I mean, that's just the hard fact that some of us come to at times. But you may be able to influence the culture, and there may be ways to create more synergies there than you are seeing. So I would encourage you to work through that with someone else. Talk it through how you describe the culture, where you see the potential rubs, and see if there's some ways you can influence the situation or some possibilities that you're not seeing that can close some of those gaps. But if that's just a hard fact that can't be changed, you may need to make some hard decisions about whether that's a good situation for you. The great news about it is if you decide that you need to take action and you need to even change companies based on that, mine the learning there in terms of what you really need so that you make sure you're looking for it in the new place and you're not taking the same issues with you. Hope that makes sense. I'm happy to talk that through further if the question persists or I didn't get to the exact answer there. All right, we've got one more here. Um, how do I get honest feedback about my leadership gaps at a senior level? That is a great question because that's one of the things that I talked about early, identifying where the gaps are. And that starts, identifying them for yourself. But the question is really wise because you basically want to pressure test that in the world. Many of us, who have successful careers as leaders are highly self-aware. The problem is, how do you know that you're self-aware? So you got to check it out in the world. So it's really a great opportunity to bring in a trusted partner. That might be a colleague, that might be a former boss. It could be someone within your company. It could be someone on your team. If there's someone that you trust to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily just give you good news. If it's somebody that's a yes person, you're wasting your time. So if you're asking the right source, you can get that feedback. And what I would recommend is, there's two ways to go with it. You can either ask an open-ended question, or you can share what you see as your own opportunities for closing those gaps and get their opinion on it and see if they think that the impact would be as great as you think it is, and see if they have anything to add. Keep in mind, if the list gets too long, that's fine. You're going to prioritize anyway, and you're going to be focusing on 1 to 3 things. But I think getting an outside perspective, getting out of your own head and pressure testing it in the world is a really good instinct that you should follow. Okay, let me see if there's anything. No, I think that's it for the questions now. So thanks so much for listening in. If more questions have come to you, if you think about taking on your ideal leadership persona or leadership positioning, and you're questioning, how do you do it? How do you put it into practice? If you get stuck along the way, let me know, shoot me a message, be in touch, because I'd love to help you with it, but I also would love to be able to take this thinking to the next level for the audience. Since, I address issues and questions that come up as themes. I'm seeing them across the board. So if it's true for you, it's true for others as well. So thanks so much for listening in, for giving it the thought that you have. And I'm wishing you all the best for the new year, and can't wait to go on this journey with you to see where you take this during the year.